Hi, Susan Elias here. Today I'm going to do the all-important third step on how to make a bodice block in your size. Okay, before I started the process, I padded this mannequin to my measurements. Then the first step was draping the muslin on this padded mannequin to my measurements. And then after that, I took the muslin, corrected it on the flat, added seam allowance, pinned it together, and put it back on the mannequin to test it on the mannequin. Okay, now this step, I have decided I need to put it on me. You have to try it on yourself. It will always be slightly different than your mannequin. So I tried it on myself and I wanted to make a few adjustments. And the first one is that the armhole was a little too high. So I've lowered the armhole and I've also added more to the shoulder. And then I also realized that the bust level at the apex was just a little too full. So I pinched it in here at the apex. Okay, the third thing I did was, remember my mannequin was about an inch less at the waistline. I need that extra inch. So I added it to the side seams and I pinned it together and tried it on myself. It's only half of a bodice, but you can still get a gauge, and then we can do at the very end a full bodice and make sure it's perfect. So here we go. Okay, here I am at my corkboard and I've laid the two pattern pieces flat. I've pressed it going with the grain, either going lengthwise this way or crosswise, never in a circular motion. And I started to pin the bodice here at the apex to let you know. This is the way it was before. I'm going to go ahead and pin it just slightly more here at the apex only. Okay, now it's pinned together. And then I also slash in the inside of this dart and the inside of this dart. That's because once it becomes smaller here, that the dart actually width will get smaller here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that it'll overlap a little bit here and overlap a little bit here. I don't want to change my side seam in any way. So that's why I'm taking it out of the actual dart excess inside and inside. Okay, also, as you can see, I've raised the shoulder level. I've marked it in red. I've changed my armhole and lowered it just slightly here as well as here. And I went in just a little bit here from my ease line. I also took it out just a little bit here, about a little bit over 1/4 of an inch on both this side and this side of the draped bodice, and that will give me my ideal about 32 inches with the ease that is necessary. So now we're going to go ahead and put this on the cardboard and transfer all these different markings, and here we go. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to show you some of the supplies you're going to need for this project. I have the corkboard here on top of my table, my cardboard, my muslin. I need paper scissors and fabric scissors, a notcher, long prong tracing wheel, tacks, markers and pencils with the straight ruler, the French curve, and the hip curve. Okay, let's get started. Okay, here I am with the front bodice tacked down on my cardboard. I put the straight edge of the cardboard along the straight edge of the center front. I tacked it at the apex first and then tacked it all along the inside of this muslin. So I'm ready to trace it with my long prong tracing wheel. I'm just going to go on all of the seam lines, and any kind of corrected red line I'm going to put in, and all the way around. I've got it here at the new armhole. I'm going to go from the apex to the one dart leg and the apex to the other dart leg. The same thing at the bottom. Here we go. At the waistline. At the new side seam with a little bit fuller width here. And okay, so now we're ready to take the tacks off and get this all trued. Now I'm here and the traced back bodice and front bodice have been done. And I did a little bit of corrections. you have to make sure that each of these lines are going to be the same length so it'll be able to be sewn in. So I measured the back and I made sure it was the same as the front. Okay, I also measured the shoulder line to make sure that this shoulder will be the same as that, and I made a correction here. I also got the center of this dart. Remember, this center of this dart has to be parallel to the center back. These are not parallel, these are different. And I'm going to go ahead and finish off all the rest of the lines that are missing. So I'm going to go ahead and put this dart leg in on this side, as well as this side, the dart leg here. We're going to go all the way to the apex first, like that. The same thing here above, all the way to the apex first. Remember, this is the apex. Then we're going to go inside there a little bit because we don't ever want to cut all the way to the apex on our sloper. It compromises the strength of the sloper that way. So we're going to go and make new dart legs inside that area, as well as here and above. I'm going to go ahead and put the straight line here for the shoulder, as well as here. I'm going to give this straight line for this shoulder. I'm going to take my French curve and I'm going to go ahead and put in and follow the majority of these dots. There's my new armhole. The same thing here for the front. I'm going to go right to that cross mark that I need it to be, which is this right here. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put in the curved on the waist. Follow it with your hip curve to the majority of the dots again. And here in the front, as well as the back. Okay. The neckline, going ahead and doing that with the French curve. Follow the majority of the dots, as well as the front. Okay, also important to know that it has to be perpendicular for at least 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, both on the neckline and also on the waistline, because we don't want it to make like a little pyramid thing going on. So we're going to make this, straighten this out here as well on the front. Okay, so now we have all the corrected lines in pencil, so it'll be easy to cut. Okay, let's go ahead and cut this out with my paper scissors. The back dart stays in, so I'm going to go all the way around my cutting line and give myself my little pyramid that I need for that dart. And I'm going to cut along all the lines, and I'll be right back. Okay, here I am. I said in the beginning of this episode that I was going to try it as a complete top garment. So I'm going to test it. I'm put my blocks on my pattern making paper. I've put the straight edge of the center back and the center front along any of these markings, and I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to trace all around the sloper so that I can make a pattern in order to test it. So there's the back. This is the front, going inside of that dart, all the way around. Okay, inside of this dart as well, the shoulder and the neckline. Okay, we're going to take these push pins off, and we're going to add seam allowance and cut it in our muslin. So I've taken the pattern piece, the blocks off, and when I add seam allowance to this, it will become a pattern. Okay, next step. Okay, a few things I want to talk about. I forgot to tell you about the notcher. This is the professional notcher. It makes a little hole vertically, and we do that for our notches. And I have to put the notch here and here on both sides of that dart, so then you can see where that dart starts and where that dart ends. Also, you need the notches to show whether it's a center front or a center back piece. There's one notch at the armhole for the front bodice, and there are two notches for the armhole on a back bodice. Okay, now that's taken care of. After I've already traced it out, I've added my seam allowance, and now a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance at the neckline, remember that, 1/2 of an inch everywhere else. I'm not putting the center front or the center back on fold because I'm testing it on myself, so I need to have it open in the front so that I can actually maneuver it. So then after that, I'm going to true the darts. Remember, we have to fold back the leg of the dart that's closest to the center front, move it over to the other side like that. Take your tracing wheel and make perforated marks along that seam line, and that is going to be the line that you're going to follow for your seam allowance. Same thing for the shoulder. We're going to turn that back. The excess goes towards the center front. We're going to make a perforated mark along the seam line, open it up, and now we have the shape of where we need to follow for our seam allowance. 1/2 of an inch, like that, and like this on this one, as well as the bottom dart, like that. And now all we have to do is trim that off. And we are going to now lay this on muslin, cut it out. One here needs it. Okay, we're ready to take now these pattern pieces and put it on the muslin. Just so you remember, this is center front and this is center back. Okay, and we need to put a grain line on that. The grain line is parallel to the center front and the center back. So I'm going to put a parallel line 2 inches from the center front. And as soon as I put arrows on it, that now becomes a grain line. The same thing has to happen to the center back. A parallel line 2 inches from the center back. Add your arrows. And now we have a complete pattern ready to cut in muslin and test it. So let's get started. Okay, here I am with my pattern pieces, and I've notched where the darts are, so I know the start and the finish of those darts. I've notched here at the armhole and the armhole here, as well as this dart and this dart. So that's my indication of when to close it. The notcher, you just go along the seam line this way and then this way, and that tells the sewer that it's 1/2 of an inch seam allowance this way and 1/2 of an inch seam allowance on this way. Okay, after I've done that, I have my muslin underneath here. The salvage is running on the length of this fabric. I've cut 2 pieces, and I'm facing the center front and the center back. The first thing you have to do is make sure that this grain line is parallel to the salvage. So I'm going to measure from the grain line to the salvage and make sure that it is parallel, just like that. Okay, after I get it where it's parallel, I'm going to put a weight and some other smaller weights around that one. And I'm going to do the same thing to the center back. I'm going to measure from the salvage to that grain line arrow, and I'm going to go all the way along the fabric till I have it just right. So let's see, 5. I don't want it to be too close to the salvage because it's kind of tightly woven here and it's not good for the garment. I'm going to put my weight there and additional weights wherever I need it. Now I'm ready to cut this. I'm going to cut along the cutting line, holding my paper down with my left hand, and I'm going to go all the way around the cutting line of this pattern. I'm going to follow it all the way around. If you feel more comfortable with pins, that's fine, but this is professional techniques. Okay, once I finish cutting this, I will be right back. Okay, here I am ready to put this bodice together, and I want to let you know that in a professional situation you don't really trace out the entire leg of the darts. You just put it on the fabric like that, and usually you put a pin, but I'm going to use a pencil because it's muslin, it's not my actual outer garment, and I just press through that, make an indication as well as on the outside. Then you take this muslin like this and you start from the 2 notches at the bottom like that, and you put pins along that as you need it. Just 1 pin there and 1 pin together at this point where the notch is. And that way you just sew from here to the end of that dart. I'm going to do that on all my darts, and I'll be right back. So here I am with the sewn bodice. I sewed all the seams, all the darts, pressed them towards the center back and towards the center front as here. And I also put a red stitching to show the seam line for the neckline, the center front, and the waistline and armhole. This way I can see it on myself and make sure it's on my natural center front and natural waist. Okay, I'm going to put it on. Let's see what happens. Okay, the moment of truth. I've sewn my muslin from my sloper, the front and the back. It's fitting me exactly like it needs to fit me. Not too snug, but not too full. It is basically my body measurements with a tiny bit of ease, enough to actually wear it. So here's the front. I'm going to slowly show you the back. And we did it. We did it. Here's the sloper pinned onto my mannequin so you can see how it forms the body. Here is the muslin proving that my sloper now fits me exactly to my body measurements. So that's how you make a sloper in your size. And thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. The red button on the lower right side of the screen is for subscribing, or Susan Elias Couture. My new website, www.eliascouture.com. Ask me a question, because you know I'm going to answer it. Thank you. Bye-bye.